Are your relationships feeling stuck? Do you find yourself constantly repeating the same patterns, struggling to connect, or wondering where it all went wrong? Well, here's the harsh truth. The problem might not be with the people around you, but with you. Yes, I said it. The way you show up, the habits you've formed, and the mindset you carry into your relationships could be the exact reason why things aren't working. But here's the good news. This video isn't about pointing fingers or feeling bad about it. It's about changing it. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share 7 simple habits that could completely transform the way you relate to others, whether it's in your romantic relationships, friendships, or family connections. These aren't fluff tips or wishful thinking. These are practical, no-nonsense habits that will shift how you communicate, how you connect, and how you grow together with the people you care about. And trust me, you won't want to miss this. Stick around, because what we're about to dive into could change the way you see relationships forever. Keep watching. Your connections are about to get a whole lot stronger. Number 1, radical honesty. Tell the uncomfortable truth. Let's face it, being brutally honest can be terrifying, right? I mean, who wants to say something that might hurt someone's feelings or risk making things awkward? But what if I told you that this uncomfortable truth might actually be the key to building stronger, more authentic relationships? Now, before you start thinking, no way, that sounds like a disaster waiting to happen, hear me out. Radical honesty doesn't mean being rude or insensitive. It means being real, truly, deeply, unapologetically real. Yes, trust me on this. Honesty, even when it's hard, is one of the most powerful tools you can use to break down barriers and connect on a deeper level. We've all been there, standing in front of someone, maybe a friend, partner, or even a coworker, and biting your tongue. You know the type. The situation where you're thinking, do I speak up, or do I just keep my thoughts to myself to avoid drama? You don't want to rock the boat, but deep down, you know you're not being true to yourself. And let's be honest, that feeling of holding back, it's draining. It creates this unspoken tension that can slowly chip away at trust, and even worse, it prevents you from fully connecting with people. Now, imagine if, instead of holding your tongue, you simply said what was on your mind, respectfully, but with no fear. You might feel uneasy at first, but you'd be amazed at how much lighter you feel afterward. Radical honesty isn't about being harsh, it's about being transparent. It's saying what's really going on, even when it's uncomfortable. I know, it sounds a bit terrifying, right? You're probably wondering, what if it blows up in my face? Here's the kicker. When you speak honestly, you give the other person the opportunity to understand you, to work with you, and to grow alongside you. It's the kind of honesty that clears up misunderstandings before they turn into bigger issues. It's like cleaning out a closet full of stuff you no longer need. It's uncomfortable at first, but once it's done, you've got space to breathe, and everything looks better in the long run. Let me tell you a quick story. A while ago, I was working on a project with a friend. We were in the thick of brainstorming ideas when I realized that her concept just wasn't working for me. It was one of those moments where I could have easily just nodded and gone along with it to avoid the awkwardness. But instead, I told her, "Hey, I'm not sure this is the direction I'm feeling. I think we need to tweak it." I braced myself for the pushback, the, "Oh, but I thought you liked it," or the awkward silence. But instead, she just nodded, said she understood, and we found a solution together. Honestly, it was one of the most freeing moments of my life, because I didn't just avoid an uncomfortable conversation. I embraced it and came out stronger for it. Now, I'm not saying radical honesty will magically fix everything. But here's the thing. When you're honest, you stop pretending to be something you're not, and that frees you. It's like taking off a mask you've been wearing for years. You stop tiptoeing around sensitive topics and start tackling them head-on. You stop overthinking and second-guessing yourself, and instead, you simply let the truth flow unapologetically. This isn't just about being honest with others, it's about being honest with yourself. Radical honesty gives you the courage to speak up for what you truly need and want. It's not about being right all the time or expecting others to agree with you. It's about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. It's saying, I'm worthy of being heard and I deserve to be understood for who I truly am. So next time you're in a situation where you're tempted to stay silent or sugarcoat the truth, remember this. The truth might be uncomfortable in the moment, but the freedom it brings, well, that's priceless. You've got this. Speak your truth, let go of the fear, and watch how your relationships and your life transform. After all, your space, your peace, and your dignity are worth it. Number 2, the 5-minute break. Embrace space to strengthen bonds. You ever feel like you're drowning in someone's presence? Not in a bad way, but just like you need a break. That's right. I'm talking about taking a quick 5-minute breather in the middle of a conversation or hangout. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But hear me out. This little strategy can work wonders in strengthening your relationships. Now, I know what you might be thinking. 5 minutes? That's not going to do anything. Yes, trust me on this. It's not just about physical space, it's about emotional space. Those few minutes can make all the difference, and here's why. We've all been there. You're spending time with someone, whether it's a partner, friend, or family member, and you start to feel this weird tension creeping in. Maybe the conversation is running in circles, or maybe it's just a little too much togetherness for too long. You know the type, the we're talking but not really talking moments. You feel that itch for a breather, but instead of just taking a moment to recharge, you push through, hoping it'll get better. And it doesn't. It only gets worse, right? You start feeling irritated, distant, or even overwhelmed. So, how do you avoid this inevitable emotional burnout? The secret is simple. Take a 5-minute break. This isn't just about stepping away to scroll through your phone or grabbing a coffee. It's about giving yourself a mental and emotional reset. It sounds almost too easy, doesn't it? But the truth is, taking a short pause in the middle of your interactions gives both you and the other person a chance to process your thoughts and emotions. When you give yourself a moment of space, you return to the conversation with more clarity, energy, and a better attitude. It's like hitting the refresh button on your brain. I'll give you an example. A while ago, I was in a heated discussion with a close friend. We had been talking non-stop for over an hour about something that wasn't exactly going anywhere. Both of us were frustrated, but neither of us wanted to admit that we were reaching our limit. So instead of diving deeper into the argument or dragging it out, I said, "Hey, how about we take a quick 5-minute break? Just need to step away for a second." At first, she looked a little confused, but she agreed. And you know what? After those 5 minutes, we came back, each of us a little calmer, and we found a way to actually listen to each other. We didn't solve everything in those 5 minutes, but we gave ourselves the chance to come back with clearer heads, and the conversation turned productive instead of combative. This small habit doesn't just help solve problems in the moment, it also builds respect and understanding in your relationships. When you take a break, you're showing that you care enough about the other person and yourself to ensure that you're fully present, not just emotionally drained. This is about creating space to breathe, to think, and to reset, so that when you come back together, you're not just reconnecting with your words, but with your energy, your intention, and your respect for each other. Here's the truth. You don't need to be glued to someone's side 24/7 to have a strong connection. Sometimes, a little breathing room is exactly what you need to deepen your bond. It's okay to take a pause. It's okay to admit that you need space, even in the middle of the most important conversations. In fact, it's empowering, because when you do this, you're not just preserving your own peace, you're respecting theirs too. And in the long run, that's what builds stronger, healthier, and more balanced relationships. So go ahead, take the 5-minute break. Don't overthink it. It's about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. And when you come back, you'll notice something incredible. You'll be more present, more engaged, and ready to build something real. You've got this. Number 3, apologize first, even when it's not your fault. Here's a truth bomb for you. Sometimes the best way to fix a conflict is to apologize first, even when you're not the one in the wrong. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? You're probably thinking, why should I apologize when I've done nothing wrong? Yes, trust me on this. The real power of an apology doesn't come from admitting fault. It comes from creating the space for healing and resolution. You don't always have to wait for the other person to say sorry first. In fact, taking the initiative to apologize, even when you're not at fault, can completely change the dynamic of a situation. We've all been there, a tense conversation, maybe a misunderstanding, or even a flat-out argument where you know you're right, but the relationship still feels off. You know the type. Emotions are high, and no one wants to back down. Everyone's just waiting for the other person to give in. But here's the problem with that. If everyone is waiting for the other to apologize, nothing ever gets resolved. The tension just sits there, growing, until it's harder to even look each other in the eye. Sound familiar? This is where the apologize first strategy comes into play. It's not about admitting guilt. It's about creating a bridge back to connection. Here's the thing. An apology, when offered first, isn't a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of emotional strength. It says, I care about our relationship more than I care about being right. I know it might feel uncomfortable at first. It might feel like you're letting the other person off the hook. But here's why it works. When you take that first step, you open the door for a more honest and productive conversation. Instead of being stuck in a cycle of blame, you create a space where both sides can be heard and understood. I'll give you an example from my own life. A few months ago, I was working on a project with a colleague, and things weren't going smoothly. We had a miscommunication about a deadline, and honestly, I felt like she was the one who dropped the ball. I was frustrated, and I wanted to point out how her oversight had affected my work. But instead of jumping into a defensive rant, I took a step back, looked at the bigger picture, and said, I'm sorry for the confusion earlier. I think we got our wires crossed. And you know what happened? The tension melted. She immediately apologized too, and we were able to move forward and fix the issue together. That simple act of offering an apology, when I didn't even feel at fault, opened up the space for both of us to be honest, without defensiveness getting in the way. Now, I know what you might be thinking. But what if I'm apologizing for something I didn't do? Won't that just let the other person off the hook? Here's the thing. An apology isn't about giving someone a free pass. It's about diffusing the tension and creating the emotional space to heal. It's a way of saying, I care more about our relationship than I do about being right. This is a way to reclaim your peace without letting your ego control the situation. And trust me, it's incredibly empowering. When you apologize first, you're taking back control of the situation. You're not letting the cycle of blame and resentment control you. Instead, you're setting the tone for a more mature, empathetic way of handling conflict. You're giving yourself, and the other person, permission to be vulnerable, to admit mistakes, and to grow. And yes, it's a powerful thing. So, next time you find yourself in a conflict, remember this. Apologize first, even when you're not at fault. It's about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. It's about putting your relationship above your pride and showing that you're strong enough to take the first step toward healing. After all, it's not about being right. It's about being real and making room for growth. Number 4, the non-negotiable me time. Prioritize yourself. First, here's something that might sound selfish, but hear me out. You need to prioritize yourself first. Yes, you heard that right. You've probably been told countless times to take care of others, help out wherever you can, and be there for your family, friends, or colleagues. But when was the last time you put yourself first? I know. This might make you feel a little uncomfortable, like you're ignoring responsibilities or letting people down. But trust me, if you don't make time for yourself, you'll end up burned out, resentful, and barely able to show up for anyone, including yourself. So let's talk about why making me time non-negotiable is the most empowering thing you can do for your well-being. We've all been there. You're juggling work, family, friends, errands, you name it. You're running on fumes, and the first thing that always gets pushed to the back burner? Your own needs. You know the type, the person who says yes to every request, but never gets around to asking for what they need. Or worse, the person who feels guilty for taking 5 minutes to breathe without any distractions. It's like there's always something more important, someone else who needs you more. But here's the thing, you can't pour from an empty cup. If you keep ignoring yourself, eventually, there won't be anything left to give. So, here's the twist. Make me time a non-negotiable. Now, I'm not talking about the occasional bubble bath or a quick coffee break. I'm talking about a deliberate, sacred block of time that is all about you. No distractions, no obligations. Whether it's 15 minutes or an hour, you need this time to recharge, reflect, and reconnect with yourself. And here's why it works. When you take that time, you come back stronger. You're more present. You have more patience. And most importantly, you're filling your own emotional tank so that you can genuinely show up for others in a healthier way. I'll give you a personal example. A few months ago, I realized I had been running non-stop without taking a real break. Work was piling up, and my social calendar was bursting at the seams. I was putting everyone else's needs before my own, and the result? I started feeling resentful and exhausted, snapping at people over the smallest things. So I made a decision. I blocked off 1 hour every Sunday afternoon. No phone, no emails, just me. It felt strange at first, like I was wasting time. But over the weeks, I started noticing a difference. I felt more energized, my patience grew, and I actually started looking forward to spending time with people because I wasn't drained from the get-go. Here's the emotional shift that happens when you start taking me time seriously. You stop feeling guilty about taking care of yourself. You stop thinking you're selfish for prioritizing your mental health. It's about creating space for your own growth and well-being. When you do that, you start showing up as the best version of yourself, not just for others, but for you. And trust me, that version of you is a lot more grounded, peaceful, and capable of handling whatever life throws your way. So the next time you find yourself running on empty, remember this: you deserve that time. You deserve to be at your best. Take the time to honor your needs, your peace, and your energy. The world will thank you for it, but more importantly, you'll thank yourself. Because prioritizing yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. Your space, your peace, and your dignity are yours to reclaim. And once you start making that me time non-negotiable, you'll see how much more you have to offer the world. Number 5, fight naked, drop the defensive armor. Here's a bold statement: fight naked. No, I don't mean literally, though if you want to go for it, more power to you. But stick with me, because this concept could be the game changer you didn't know you needed. See, when we face conflicts, whether it's with family, friends, or co-workers, we often come armed with defenses. We shield ourselves with walls, ready to protect, deflect, or strike. We put on this armor, thinking it'll keep us safe. But here's the thing. The more armor you wear, the less likely you are to actually connect. The more you protect yourself, the further you push others away. Now, I know this sounds risky. It sounds like you're about to be left vulnerable, right? But trust me on this. Fighting naked is the most powerful way to truly connect with someone. Think about it. How many times have you been in an argument and you both walk away feeling more frustrated than ever? It's like you're both speaking in circles, neither of you really getting through to the other. You know the type. Defensive, stubborn, not willing to give an inch because you're too busy holding on to your own version of the truth. We've all been there, right? We've all been caught in that cycle of I'm right, you're wrong, where both sides just dig in their heels and fight to be heard, but not really understood. But here's the twist. What if you dropped all that armor? What if instead of defending your point, you just listened? What if instead of attacking back, you let your guard down? Fighting naked means letting go of all the defensive positions you've built up over the years. It means being open, vulnerable, and honest, even when it feels uncomfortable. It's about dropping the act, the pride, and the ego. Here's why it works. When we stop trying to protect ourselves, we create a space for real understanding. Instead of fighting to win the conversation, we're fighting to resolve it. And yes, it's scary, but it's also incredibly freeing. Let me share a real-life example. A few months ago, I had a heated conversation with a close friend. I felt like I had been misunderstood for the longest time, and I was ready to defend my stance. As the conversation escalated, I realized we were both just yelling over each other, neither of us truly listening. So, I decided to try something different. I paused, dropped the defense, and said, I feel like we're just talking past each other, and I'm really sorry if I've hurt you. It was a simple, raw admission, and it completely shifted the dynamic. My friend softened, and suddenly we were both on the same side. I wasn't fighting to be right anymore. I was fighting for clarity and connection. And that's when the real healing began. Fighting naked in this sense isn't about conceding defeat or losing your dignity. It's about reclaiming your emotional space, your peace, and your true self. It's about saying, I'm not afraid to be vulnerable because I know that's how we grow. You don't have to over-explain yourself, justify your feelings, or build a fortress around them. You just need to stand in your truth and let the other person do the same. Yes, it's a risk, but it's a risk that's worth taking. The emotional payoff is huge. Less resentment, more understanding, and a deeper bond. So the next time you find yourself in a conflict, remember this. Drop the armor. Be real, be raw, and let the conversation be a space where both sides can breathe. No more fighting to win, fight to understand. When you do, you'll find that the strongest connection comes from the moments when you're the most vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, you find your true power. Number 6, radical unplugging. Disconnect to reconnect. Let's get real for a second. Radical unplugging sounds a little intense, right? But here's the thing. Most of us are living in a world where our screens, our phones, and our social media feeds have become the center of everything. We're constantly connected, but are we truly connected? I'm talking about real, face-to-face, heart-to-heart kind of connections. You know, the ones that leave you feeling seen and heard, not just liked or commented on. Now, I know what you might be thinking. I can't just disconnect. How will I keep up with everything? But trust me, radical unplugging isn't about abandoning everything. It's about making space to reconnect with what truly matters. You've probably been there. It's the end of the day, and you've scrolled through countless social media posts, answered emails, checked the news, yet you still feel empty. Like, yes, you've been connected to the digital world, but not to your world, not to the people who matter, or even yourself. We've all been in that endless loop, notifications pinging, to-do lists growing, and before you know it, hours have passed. But nothing truly significant has been accomplished. You know the type, always reachable, always online, but never really present. It's like we're living in two worlds at once, and neither is fully real. So here's the radical idea: unplug. I'm not talking about a casual 30-minute break. No, I'm talking about carving out significant chunks of time to just let go of all the digital noise. It sounds terrifying, right? A little like stepping into the unknown. But here's why it works. When you disconnect from the virtual world, you give yourself the gift of space. Space to be with your thoughts, space to be with the people around you, and most importantly, space to reconnect with yourself. It's a reset. When you take that step back, you start to see things from a new perspective. And trust me, it's more powerful than any screen ever could be. Let me tell you about a time I did this. A few months ago, I was drowning in work and social media updates. I decided to go on a weekend trip. No phones, no laptops, no distractions, just me and nature. I won't lie, the first couple of hours were tough. My fingers itched to scroll. I kept thinking, what if I miss something? But as the hours passed, something magical happened. I started to feel again. I noticed the small things, how the wind felt on my skin, how the sunlight made everything seem more vibrant, and how the people I was with felt real. We had conversations without interruptions, we laughed, and we connected on a level that was deeper than just exchanging words. By the end of the weekend, I felt like a completely different person, refreshed, grounded, and present. Radical unplugging isn't just about putting your phone down, it's about reclaiming your space, your peace, and your mental clarity. It's about stepping away from the chaos of the digital world and finding your center again. And I get it. It's easy to feel the pressure to be constantly plugged in, to be available at all times. But here's the thing, you don't need to be everywhere at once. You don't need to keep up with every post, every tweet, every notification. When you unplug, you're not falling behind, you're stepping ahead. You're giving yourself the freedom to breathe, to think, and to truly live. So here's the empowering takeaway. Next time you feel overwhelmed, stressed, or just plain disconnected, remember that sometimes the best way to move forward is to take a step back. Disconnect to reconnect. Your mind, your soul, and your relationships will thank you. Number 7, give the gift of criticism. Constructive, not destructive. Criticism. It's one of those words that instantly raises our defenses, right? The second we hear it, we start preparing for the worst. The sting of harsh words, the uncomfortable silence, or the self-doubt that follows. But what if I told you that criticism doesn't have to be a bad thing? What if criticism could actually help instead of hurt? Now, I know this sounds a bit counterintuitive, but stay with me on this one. Because here's the thing, criticism, when done right, can be one of the most powerful gifts you can give someone, or even yourself. You've been there, haven't you? A colleague, a friend, maybe even a family member makes a mistake, and you know you have to say something. But how do you approach it? Do you soften the blow and try to avoid stepping on toes, or do you just blurt out what's on your mind? You know the type, the well-meaning but poorly delivered feedback that feels more like a personal attack than a constructive conversation. We've all been there, either receiving that kind of criticism or giving it, and it rarely leads to growth. In fact, it often leaves everyone feeling worse than before. So here's where the magic happens. Constructive criticism, not destructive, not passive-aggressive, but constructive. This is the kind of feedback that's clear, actionable, and focused on growth. It's a little like planting a seed rather than tossing a rock. Instead of just pointing out flaws, it's about offering a solution, a way forward, Instead of just tearing down, it's about building up. You're not attacking the person, you're focusing on the issue, the work or the behavior, and you're empowering them to do better. And here's the beauty of it. When you deliver criticism this way, you're showing respect and a willingness to help the other person grow. You're helping them see things from a different perspective, one that's constructive, not destructive. Let me give you a real-life example. A while back, I was working on a project with a teammate who was struggling to get things done on time. Now, I could have easily pulled them aside, told them they were falling behind, and made them feel terrible about it. Instead, I chose to sit down and have a more open conversation. I asked them what was getting in the way of their progress and listened. Then, instead of just pointing out what wasn't working, I helped them come up with a plan to break things down into manageable steps. Together, we identified areas where they could improve, and I made sure to acknowledge the effort they'd already put in. That conversation didn't just help get the project back on track, it built trust and helped us both grow. And while it wasn't easy, it made all the difference. The emotional payoff, massive. When criticism is constructive, it not only helps the other person improve, it boosts your emotional intelligence too. You stop fearing difficult conversations and start seeing them as opportunities to help. This isn't about holding back or sugarcoating things. It's about giving feedback in a way that leaves both sides feeling better. And when you start doing this, you'll notice a shift. You'll reclaim your power in situations where you'd usually shy away. You'll feel more confident in your ability to give and receive feedback without the emotional baggage. So here's the empowering takeaway. Give the gift of criticism, constructively, not destructively. When you offer feedback in a way that helps someone grow, you're not just making them better, you're elevating yourself too. It's a strength, a sign of maturity, and most importantly, it's a way of showing respect for both the person and the process. And when you give the gift of constructive criticism, you're helping to create an environment where growth isn't feared, but embraced. Thank you so much for watching. I truly hope that these 7 simple habits gave you some fresh insights and practical tools to improve your relationships. If you found this video valuable, don't forget to hit that like button. Your support means the world. And if you're hungry for more content like this, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a new video that could help you grow in all your connections. Know someone who could use a little relationship boost? Share this video with them. It might just make their day. I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts or any personal experiences you've had around building better relationships. Let's get a conversation going and learn from each other. Remember, great relationships start with you, and these habits can help you build a stronger, more meaningful connection with everyone around you. Keep growing, keep improving, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care and keep investing in the relationships that matter most.